On a hot, sunny day, my kind-hearted mom, who was always my support, passed away. She was always gentle with me, sometimes strict, but she was always on my side no matter what. It's still hard to believe that she's now in an eternal sleep. Tears filled my eyes as I gazed at Mom's smiling face in the photo. My name is Grace. I'm about to turn 36, married for 7 years. Blessed with a lovely 5-year-old daughter, I thought I was happy. Last night's wake was a busy affair for just me and Dad. Mom had many friends due to her sociable nature, and many people came to remember her. Watching this made me feel like my heart was being healed. Dad seemed to feel the same, showing a faint smile for the first time in a while. I'm glad you were here, Grace. I couldn't have done it alone. Dad wasn't exactly a henpecked husband, but he was a man of dignity, so I never expected him to say such things. I didn't do anything. It's all thanks to Mom. She's always been solid for the family, but in times like these, I realized just how incredible she was. Even though he must have been prepared, losing his beloved wife had taken a toll on him. Dad, muttering with a hunchback, looked so small. Mom was diagnosed with a severe illness 6 months ago and received a terminal prognosis. While everyone else was despondent, Mom alone remained resolute. Crying won't cure anything, and there's no use in feeling down. If I have time, I'd rather think about how to spend it meaningfully. Then began Mom's preparations for her own passing. To ensure no one would be troubled after her death, she meticulously organized everything from selecting her own portrait for the memorial, items for her coffin, to a list of people to contact, and important documents like insurance papers. In a previous conversation with Mom, the ones left behind have so much to do, they hardly have time to grieve. Mom must have remembered my offhand remark. She gave me and Dad ample time to remember her and shed tears. Thinking of Mom, who considered us until the very end, I cried again. It was just like Mom to have such a dignified end. I wiped away my tears with a handkerchief. I received a call from my husband Matthew just before the wake began. I was planning to come, even if late, but Victoria looked so lonely and Mom is having a hard time too, so I decided to stay at my parents' house today. Matthew's parents' house is about a 15-minute drive from ours. I knew we'd be busy, and I understood that our daughter Victoria, although older, still gets lonely. Reluctantly, I had asked Matthew's parents to look after Victoria. Addison, my mother-in-law, and I have never really gotten along. Addison, who speaks her mind without any hesitation, often makes cutting remarks without any regard for my feelings. Regardless of how much it upsets me, it seems to affect her not at all. This was why I hesitated to leave Victoria with Addison. Yet, despite my resolve in asking Matthew to be here, on a day like this, I really wanted him by my side. My loneliness was something Matthew probably couldn't understand. I felt like lashing out at my vulnerability, but I restrained myself. I really wish you could be here with me at a time like this. Can't be helped, right? You want me to leave Victoria feeling lonely and just come over? Is that what a mother would do? I didn't say that. Anyway, I can't come today. I'll be there tomorrow, so don't be selfish. Sorry. Okay, see you tomorrow. Please take care. After hanging up the phone, I felt unfairly blamed and my mood dropped. However, it's true that Victoria might be feeling lonely away from me. Given our frequent late nights and weekend work, Victoria's time with her father is limited. Perhaps being with her father, rather than suddenly being left with her grandparents, would be less lonely for her. Hopefully Victoria can take this opportunity to get some affection from her dad. This might be a chance in a way. Resolving to think this way, I spent a lonely night, just Dad and me. The funeral the next day was unbearably humid. Contrary to expectations of cooling down after early morning rain, the temperature rose dramatically, increasing discomfort. My mobile phone's weather app showed the temperature outside exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Although the funeral hall was air-conditioned, it wasn't very cool due to the intense heat outside. Still, wanting to avoid any disrespect to those attending, I checked every detail after saying my goodbyes to resting Mom. The memorial service was scheduled for exactly 12 noon. About 2 hours earlier, attendees began to arrive gradually to bid their final farewell to Mom. Among them were many familiar faces I had known since my childhood. Some said goodbye with tears in their eyes. Others shared memories, laughing and crying at the same time. Some expressed anger, feeling that passing away in one's 60s was too soon. Witnessing these varied farewells, I had a singular thought. Mom was really lucky, wasn't she? Yeah, I think so too. She was a great mom for both me and you, Dad, but it looks like she was for others too. Looking at everyone's faces, you can tell how much Mom was loved by all. Feeling proud of the life my mom had led, I gazed at her smiling portrait. I have to be a good mom to Victoria too, I thought to myself at that moment. Suddenly, it felt like the reception area became noisy. I'll go check what's happening, I informed Dad and left the hall. What I saw there was utterly out of place. You've got to be kidding. Amidst the crowd of mourners in funeral attire, one figure stood out conspicuously. Oh, Grace! She called out my name loudly as she approached. Addison? My face must have looked strained, and for a good reason. Addison had arrived not in mourning attire, but in her usual casual clothes. Indeed, for Addison, who favors bright floral patterns, this was certainly a more subdued choice. But wearing a green floral print dress to the funeral of her son's wife's mother seemed quite unusual. Where on earth would a mother-in-law dressed in such attire even be? It's especially hot today. I'm already sweating just from walking a bit. I stared in disbelief. Addison, your outfit. I wanted to yell at her for her choice of dress, but as her daughter-in-law, I had to hold back. Oh, this? Don't worry about it. But still, just between us. Addison leaned in close to whisper. I couldn't fit into my summer morning attire. I wonder when my body shape changed. I felt a deep aversion towards Addison, making such inappropriate comments in her out-of-place outfit. Fortunately, there's still time. Shall we go buy something suitable together? Please change immediately. I don't want you in that outfit any longer. I practically begged Addison, who just laughed off my request. It's fine. I've already given a generous condolence money as a relative, and I don't want any unnecessary expenses. I couldn't believe Addison could say such a thing. It was hard to accept that such an insensitive person was my husband's mom. I barely stopped myself from crumbling to my knees. Addison was hopeless, but as long as Matthew remained sensible, that would be enough for me. By the way, aren't you with Matthew and Victoria? Of course, we came together. He's just parking the car, so we'll be here soon. I see. Mommy! Suddenly, I heard Victoria's voice and turned towards the entrance. Victoria, in a cute black frilly dress, came running towards me. Victoria, you're wearing such a pretty dress. Yeah, Grandpa bought it for me. Wow, that's wonderful. We'll have to thank Grandpa later. Victoria twirled, showing off how her skirt flared, looking absolutely adorable. About Victoria, I need to tell you something, Addison said, furrowing her brows and addressing me. Judging by her expression, it didn't seem like good news. Ah, yes, thank you for yesterday. Honestly, I didn't want to thank her at all. After all, Addison hadn't offered a single word of condolence or sympathy since she arrived. But since she had taken care of Victoria, I had no choice but to express my gratitude. I thanked her lightly, and Addison let out a heavy sigh. Ah, Grace, what kind of parenting are you doing? What do you mean? Victoria hardly talks or eats properly. Isn't that because she was feeling lonely without me? That's a problem too. Always clinging to Mom, and she doesn't come to me at all. Grace, you haven't been bad-mouthing me in front of Victoria, have you? I would never say such things. If I had truly bad-mouthed Addison in front of Victoria, she would probably refuse to even approach her grandmother's house. That's why I endured Addison's sharp tongue alone, without telling anyone. Really? I wonder. Addison scoffed, clearly not convinced. She doesn't even go to Matthew. Poor guy working hard for the family and yet feeling isolated at home. That's not true. I've heard stories of mothers and daughters teaming up against the father. Is that what's happening? We are not doing anything like that. It's just that recently Matthew has been coming home extremely late, and he's often working on his days off. That's why Victoria doesn't know how to interact with her dad. Mornings are always rushed with kindergarten preparations, leaving no time for leisurely conversations. Matthew doesn't return until the date changes at night. Recently, there have been hardly any days off, and even those few are mostly spent sleeping, using the "I'm tired from work" excuse. That's why Victoria often looks sad and says, "Daddy is always away. Does he not like me?" Addison scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. Matthew's working hard every day with work and social commitments. It's unbelievable that you live off his salary and can't even understand that. Addison dramatically shook her head in exasperation. Why did I have to hear such things at this time? The stares from around me were painful, and I involuntarily looked down. How did I appear to Victoria, silently hanging my head? "Grace, sorry for being late. The parking lot was completely full." But the person who arrived, oblivious to the heavy atmosphere, was my husband Matthew. What? I was speechless upon seeing Matthew. "Matthew, what are you wearing?" Did he even understand his position as the son-in-law of the deceased? With his gray polo shirt wide open and wearing navy blue pants, it was a clear display of insensitivity. Truly an absurd parent and child duo. I had properly prepared morning attire at home, didn't I? I even placed it prominently in the living room with appropriate shoes, not ones with decorations, but for funeral use. What can I do about it now? I stayed at my parents' house since yesterday and haven't been back home. My anger was boiling over at Matthew's nonchalant response. Even so, you could have just gone home to change. Coming like this, without any common sense? I almost blurted out, "It's absurd," but then I caught Addison's gaze and fell silent. "After coming all the way here in this heat, what a thing to say!" Addison raised her voice, drawing everyone's attention. "Matthew took time off work to be here. As his wife, you should first express your gratitude." I am thankful for that. Then don't complain about every little thing. Little thing? Was she really saying that coming in casual wear to a funeral was a minor issue? Morning attire is too hot and stuffy. I'm wearing subdued colors, so you shouldn't complain. I wasn't just complaining. I wanted him to be appropriately dressed. How can you even think like that? We're a family, so it's fine to be casual. Hearing Matthew's shocking words, everything went dark before my eyes. To think that casual was okay for my dear mom's funeral. Right, I don't like dark, somber atmospheres either. We're relatives after all. Let's avoid being too gloomy. Let's send her off in a bright, usual manner. People say nowadays it's not about formality, right? I'm sure Grace's mom would have agreed. What is this mother and son even talking about? Why do I have to endure such disrespect towards an important ceremony from them? As I clenched my fist, trembling with anger and about to speak up, "Enough of this disgrace!" A loud voice echoed. Looking towards the entrance, there stood my father-in-law, Jack. Unlike the other two, Jack was properly dressed in black mourning attire. Seeing him appropriately dressed, something so simple and expected, brought tears of relief to my eyes. "Who are you calling a disgrace?" Addison retorted to Jack's comment, ever defiant. "You two? It's bad enough to embarrass yourselves, but to bring shame upon Grace as well? What were you thinking?" Jack approached and glared at Matthew and Addison. "What's this all of a sudden? You didn't say anything at home." Addison snapped back and... Do I really need to spell it out? Jack sighed deeply, clearly exasperated. I've been wearing morning attire since leaving home. You didn't notice or feel anything even seeing that? We were busy before leaving. I wasn't paying attention to Dad's outfit. I had to prepare not only myself but also Victoria. Matthew tried to argue back, but Jack's expression remained unyielding. When did you ever prepare Victoria? Well, how many times have you spoken to Victoria since yesterday? Can't help it. I'm tired from all the hard work. Don't use work as an excuse. Matthew probably never expected to be scolded by Jack. Embarrassed, Matthew averted his gaze from Jack. You come home, go straight to the bath, eat, and then instead of playing with Victoria, you just lie down and play games. In the morning, you don't even greet her. Just put on those ridiculous clothes like Mom told you. You don't understand your own position. The words I always wanted to say to Matthew. The things I had been turning a blind eye to. Jack was voicing them for me. Hey, Dad, don't shout like that here. You too. What's this relative excuse? Disliking formality? You've been avoiding proper family interactions, not even visiting when she was hospitalized. Always pushing your opinions, only thinking about yourself. How dare you say that? You always think only about yourself and Matthew. If that's so important, why not move out and live with your precious Matthew? Let him take care of you in your old age. Jack scoffed, and Matthew frantically waved his hands. You think I can do that? I can't take care of Mom. Grace should look after her and I'll help through my work. That's teamwork, right? So it all comes down to me as usual. My words slipped out unintentionally. Of course! Matthew yelled in frustration. You're a housewife. I'm the one providing for you. So it's your duty to take care of my parents. His words pushed my anger to its limit. All right, then let me speak my mind. I stepped closer to Matthew with a sarcastic smile on my face. You always use work as an excuse, but are you really working all the time? What are you talking about? Is your being late really because of work? Are your weekend shifts actually for work? Of course they are. I'm sacrificing my own time for the family. Liar. I couldn't listen to him anymore and cut him off. I know, Matthew. It's not that you're busy with work. You're busy meeting other women, aren't you? What nonsense are you spouting now? I normally wouldn't dare say such things to Matthew, but Jack had given me the courage. Some time ago, Victoria said something. Daddy always smells like soap. The shock of hearing that from Victoria's mouth is still vivid in my memory. I was so devastated, I even lost a lot of weight. But Matthew never noticed any change in me. So I decided to find out for myself. While you were busy with your work, I was busy gathering evidence. Gathering evidence against the unsuspecting Matthew was surprisingly easy. What are you doing? Sneaking around and prying is the lowest. You're one to talk. Jack's words turned Matthew's face pale. I've been thinking since I found out, whether to forgive you or not, but Victoria made it clear for me. I never thought I'd say this today. Seeing my sad smile, Matthew seemed to realize what was coming. Victoria? I beckoned Victoria over. What is it? Can you tell Daddy the liberation spell you told Mommy? Victoria beamed and said, Victoria doesn't need Daddy anymore. Goodbye. Time seemed to stop for everyone there. Jack was the one who understood everything. He dragged the screaming Matthew and Edison out, apologizing repeatedly to those around him. Thus, my mom departed for the clear blue sky, bid farewell only by those who truly cherished her. Dad lamented our tragedy, but I couldn't help but think that Mom had paved a new path for my happiness. Later, I took the signed divorce papers to Matthew's parents' house. Addison and Jack's roles had dramatically switched, with Addison being re-educated from scratch. Matthew seemed weakened by Victoria's words and the shock of the divorce. He initially resisted, but decided to divorce after being sued for alimony by the woman he had been secretly seeing, who didn't know he was married. As the affair involved a business partner, after settling alimony and child support, Matthew's infidelity was exposed to his company, and he was transferred to a regional office next month. Victoria and I started searching for a new happiness in a new place.